Fast, intense, hidden for decades, buried deep within locked archives, the documented reality of global power is finally bleeding into the open. The neat, predictable historical timelines we memorize in school are actively cracking apart. Every newly declassified memo and leaked directive reveals a drastically different story. We are watching the collapse of a deliberate suppression of facts, one that spans multiple generations and implicates the highest levels of international leadership. These leaks do not target individual leaders. They target the structural integrity of the history we've been told. When the primary records of an administration contradict the public archive, the foundation of institutional trust becomes a liability. Watching these carefully guarded files hit the public consciousness forces us to reconsider exactly who we have been following all along. Historically, leaders project absolute invulnerability through physical space. They construct sweeping golden architecture designed specifically to make the individual citizen feel incredibly small. The goal is to establish a public mandate. They want to create the illusion that their sweeping authority grows organically from the deep affection of the people. To prove this mandate exists, governments engineer massive, highly emotional spectacles. They pack thousands of citizens into public squares to generate a visual wall of unquestioning adoration. By staging heroic speeches and endless, colorful public relations campaigns, leadership insulates itself. It is nearly impossible to critically examine a figure who is constantly bathed in applause. That flawless public image serves a single mechanical purpose. It operates as a protective shell, drawing your eyes away from the actual machinery of statecraft. Real decisions do not happen on brightly lit balconies. They happen in quiet, inaccessible rooms, negotiated by unelected officials operating far outside the reach of a microphone. True historical leverage relies on off-the-books agreements, silent alliances, and unrecorded handshake deals that shape national borders without a single public vote. This entire system runs on information asymmetry. The most efficient way to prevent civilian resistance is to ensure the population simply does not possess the facts required to ask questions. Take a look at this declassified agreement. State departments systematically scrub their footprints, dragging heavy black ink across any legal text that might expose their methods. Notice how these lines of silence remain standard practice. The physical tools of concealment stay the same. The longest-lasting leaders maintained their grip on nations not by earning public trust, but by successfully monopolizing the truth. When you strip away the speeches and the parades, you find the core operating principle of this architecture. Compliance is ultimately enforced by fear. The first defensive layer is observation. Governments quietly wire massive walls of screens to track, record, and map domestic populations in real time. The second layer is physical intimidation. When they roll out endless, synchronized columns of armor, the message broadcasted to their own citizens is absolute untouchability. But history consistently hits a critical failure point. Eventually, the economic or social pain grows too sharp, and the public finally decides to look past the state-sponsored propaganda. At the moment the staged mandate is challenged, the diplomatic posture disappears. State resources shift immediately from public relations to physical force, as seen here with bayonets leveled against the people they claim to represent. When a regime is reduced to visible violence to maintain order, it loses its most effective tool, the voluntary compliance of the population. This trade-off often marks the beginning of a terminal decline, as the cost of suppression eventually exceeds the state's capacity to pay it. History shows us that architectures of power built entirely on concealment lack the flexibility to survive external shocks. These ruins stand as the terminal result of systems that prioritized secrets over stability. Do not make the mistake of thinking this cycle is confined to ancient history. It is actively rendering around us right now. The suits are sharper and the cameras are higher resolution, but the synchronized theater of diplomacy operates on the exact same ancient script. Today, the primary weapon of enforcement is rarely physical force. It is a broadcasted reality, tightly managed across thousands of digital screens to dictate what you are allowed to worry about. We live inside an information paradox. We scroll through more data than any generation before us, yet we are completely insulated from the raw mechanics of how our world is actually run. Pause and look closely at the heavily filtered narratives delivered to you every single day by the systems managing your life. If the hidden architecture of power hasn't changed at all, how much of your reality do you actually know?